right, welcome back to Pete the Mower Guy, small engine repair, starter rope replacement part 2. On this part of the video, I'm going to be doing that the Honda and that Briggs engine. And well, without further ado, let's get started. This particular Honda engine, I don't know what it was. It might have been mounted on a Honda mower. They've been using these Honda engines on a lot of different machines. I can't think of any offhand right now, but a lot of Honda engines are on maybe a Toro or an MPD or something like that. But the Honda engine replacing the starter rope is just as simple as replacing it on the Kohler. But I'm going to create an issue here, because if you don't keep an eye on your starter rope, and that rope should break, what's going to happen is that knife not sharp enough. There's starter rope. Whoops. What's going to happen is your rope just went inside of the housing. And now it's like, what do I do now? Well, it's not all that bad to get that starter out. Let me get this starter out and off the engine, and I'll show you how to get that out. Again, not a big deal. The Hondas also use a 10mm socket. I don't know if I said that on a Kohler. I think I did, but they use a 10mm socket. This is one of them. A Honda is one of them that sometimes the stud will come out instead of the nut coming off at the end of the stud. And if that should happen, you got a little bit more to do, but like I said, if that should happen, just get all of them out you can, lift it off, and then you can use a pair of vice grips to hold that stud, and use a wrench to crack that nut loose. By the way, as I've said in my other videos, I'm a big fan of Harbor Freight tools. These magnetic dishes, you can't beat them. You drop your the nut from the engine in there, and you know, they won't go anywhere. And if you have a metal table, it sticks to the metal table and stays in place. And there she is. But what you don't see is you don't see the rope, the end of the rope. I'm going to reposition the camera again and sit at the bench here and show you what to do. I got my starter here. I got to find the end of that rope. So what I'm going to do, and you don't want to turn these backwards. And there's this song out there, is I don't know if it's rap or whatever, but it's "Who Let the Dogs Out?" And that's what those little things in there. So if you can remember that, you turn the pulley till you see the dogs come out. See those little white things coming out of there? That's the dogs. And I don't know any others, but that would be counterclockwise. You would turn that counterclockwise, and that'll bring the dogs out. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to look for the end of that rope right in this area here. You can see where the rope guide goes, where the rope goes into that guide, right here. So I'm going to see, and you can see the inside here where it's an open area, that you'll be able to find the end of the rope. So I'm just going to back that off until I can see the end of the rope. Now, if I don't see the end of the rope, which I don't, oh, there it is. A little pick of some sort or a little screwdriver, you can kind of pry the end of it out and get that, pull that rope out. Now, you've got to be careful. You don't want it to get jammed between the pulley and the housing of the starter. Pull that out all the way. And you can drop your screwdriver in it now to keep it from pulling back in, but that spun around a few times more than it should. So you're going to have to rewind this starter pulley so that you get the proper tension on it. Now I can just pull this rope right on. Now, I'm going to let this starter pulley just wind back in all the way, okay? And let me angle this down a little bit, and I'm going to show you how I rewind that spring to the proper tension. All right, what I do, I hold the starter pulley, and I turn the housing, which I'll be turning the housing clockwise and holding the starter pulley stationary. And well, I don't know if you could hear that, but that's the dogs that are coming out. And I'm just going to wind this thing all the way till it stops. And that'll have full tension on that starter spring. Once it hits the stop position, I don't know how easy it's going to be to see, but here's where the rope goes in to the housing. And let's see if I can see it. And here, let me hold this here. Here is where the rope goes through the pulley. Now, that's probably half a turn, which I'm okay with that. But if I wind that all the way and that guide is anywhere near that, where the rope goes into the pulley is anywhere near where this is, I'm going to back this off a full turn. I'm going to back it off a turn until where the rope meets the pulley. I'm going to back it off to where the hole in the pulley is, meets the rope guide on the starter housing. So let me back that off. Again, this is a half a turn. And the reason you do that is you don't want to put all that tension on your spring when it bottoms out. What will happen is you'll break your spring. And if you break your spring, manufacturers today, I am pretty sure, they don't sell springs separate anymore. Probably too many people have lost an eye because of that. I don't have safety glasses on this because I know nothing's going to fly out. It's not a bad idea to have safety glasses on. I'm not going to take that apart. I'm not going to get into replacing starter springs because it can be dangerous. I mean, those springs have a lot of life to them, and you could lose an eye. So I'm not going to get into that. Your best bet on something, if you should break the spring, is just to replace the whole starter assembly. And if you look on eBay, you can get them dirt cheap. So anyway, so I backed that off to where I thought the rope guide is lined up with the hole on the starter pulley. Got my screwdriver, find the closest slot I can put it in, and there she is. Now, again, I'm going to do it the same way I did the other one. I'm not going to measure the end of the other rope. I'm just going to light up the end. You don't want to, once that flame goes out, you don't want to use your fingers to put a point on that because you'll blister your fingers. I've done that before. This rope here, again, this is a number 4 rope. I think it matches. Actually, I think the Honda rope might even be a 3.5, but Honda makes a really good rope, and it's rare that I end up replacing these. They make a really good rope. This rope that I use is really a top quality, but it's just a little bit thicker, but it'll still work just fine. Take this starter housing, feed the rope through, do your best to line up with that hole. You may end up having to back that pulley off a little bit for it to line up. And there it is. You can see the end of it right there. Now, pull that through some, drop your screwdriver back in it. I'm only going to tie Well, this looks like a double hitch, half hitch or whatever that. I'm going to do another one of those. Let me show you. Take it around the end, put it through the hole like an overhand knot, and then put it in there a second time. And then tighten everything up. Now, I don't know if this is imperative, but I have seen it with manufacturers. What they'll do, they'll take a lighter and they'll light it up a little bit, kind of melting everything together so that it doesn't come apart. But I don't. That knot's going to not come apart. Pull her tight and tuck everything in. And there you are. It's all put in there nice and secure. Now you can take your screwdriver out and let that starter pull that rope in. Again, I'm going to add a little extra onto this. Burn the end of the rope. I usually burn it till I see a flame on there, blow it out, and then put the point on it. Now you can see I got a little bit of a tail sticking out, not much, but that's more than enough rope on that starter to start the engine. So I can reassemble this onto the engine, and it's good. They got a new starter rope. I'm going to move the camera back over. Here's my handle. Let me dig it out. I see that Honda also makes a slip knot on the end of their rope too. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit, tie that slip knot on this side so the rope doesn't go, and I got plenty of room to work. This is just a one piece handle. You see the hole inside of there, that's where the knot goes. Slide that in there and tie another slip knot on it. Pull that slip knot out. And of course that handle's dangling a little bit, but once it's on the mower and you got this in the handle, it's going to pull itself back up into that rope guide that's attached to the handle. And if you look, you can see when I pull that out, the dogs are coming out, and that would be engaging the starter cup. So that puppy's ready to reassemble. Like I said, Briggs, and I saved the worst one for last, the hardest one for last, because Briggs never made, they started with their new engines, making it easier to replace that starter rope. But this particular engine here on this snapper, well, it's called a snapper by name only. It's just another mower. I saw this on one of the YouTube channels that Briggs & Stratton owns Snapper. So since they own Snapper, they can put that name Snapper on anything they want because they own the company. But this isn't a true Snapper mower. The true Snapper with the round deck, they give a beautiful cut. They're a nice mower. This is called a Snapper, but it's just a mower. But they got a Briggs engine on this, a 7 horsepower. And they're a little more involved in getting that starter housing off of this than these other two. And that's it. Now I can't pull this because this has an engine brake on it, and with the spark plug in, it's just going to be too hard to pull. So I can't really do anything as far as trying to test the rope. But I know it's good. When if I ever need to put this Honda onto a machine, I know it'll work fine. So, anyways, that Honda's done. Now we're going to do the. I saved the worst for last, so we're going to do that one now. Well, let's get back into this Briggs here. Now, I've been having technical issues with this. I've recorded this, I don't know how many times, but for some reason I had the camera set up wrong and it didn't record right, or I accidentally deleted the good one that I had, so I got to start all over. So anyways, let's get back into this one. But before we do, I want to show you all what I just picked up today. So let me grab the camera here, take a walk over, and I'll show you what I got. It may look like junk, and anybody might think to themselves, what are you throwing your money away on that junk for? But to me, this stuff is gold. And before I show you, I just want to tell you this. You got three main components of any riding mower. You got the engine, you got the transmission, you got the mower deck. Those are the three main components. The rest of it is just, it's just minor stuff. But those are the three things. That's what saves or destroys or junks a machine if one of those go bad. And I think I mentioned to you about my Cub Cadet, which I'm going to show you right there. And the transmission has a slight oil leak in it. So I have been looking for a spare transmission, and I got one. I finally got one. It is right there. Oh, that's the engine. Right? No, that's the engine. That's the transmission. That's a 3-speed. I think it came out of a Cub Cadet 100. The handle on it is bent forward. I hope you can see that. It's bent forward right here. See how it's... But on mine, it's bent up. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. If I should have any issues with it, I could always take it and replace it with the other one when I put it. This one doesn't. This one here feels pretty good. It's pretty solid. I'll probably put fresh oil in it, and I'll probably install that into mine. But it's basically, it looks identical. Outside of that, it looks pretty much identical. But also, what I got today is that. That right there is a Kohler K Series. I think it's a 241. It's a 10 horsepower. It's just a basic block. Doesn't have the carburetor on it. Misses some linkage from the governor. It's basically the block. It doesn't have the starter generator on it. But it's a backup engine for mine. That's the same identical engine that I have in mine. Maybe in the future, I might rebuild that and do a video on rebuilding it. That'll be the future. But I'm really excited. I live in Pleasant Hills, Pennsylvania, and I drove up to Zelienople, PA. And if you don't know if you never heard of that before, it's north of Pittsburgh. It's real close to Evans City. And if you ever saw the movie Night of the Living Dead, the opening scene in the cemetery is Evans City Cemetery, which is only maybe a mile from Zelienople. And we went up there to see it. That's how I knew where Zelienople was. We were riding around and found it. But anyway, went up there and got it today, and I'm really tickled pink about it. I got the backups for my Cub Cadet. So let's get back into this rebuilding the starter on this Briggs. All right, yeah, it looks like I got the camera situated okay. You got the cover to take off. I already did, like I said, I already rebuilt this starter and recorded it, but the recording didn't go quite like I wanted it to. And just pretend this is an old starter rope. I showed you the old one on the one video when I first started, but just figure this is the old one. So let me get this cover off. I'm going to unbolt the gas tank. There's like 3 shoulder bolts that hold it on top, and there's a bolt on the side. I'm just going to bolt it and get it out of the way. It's not a big deal. The fuel line's connected to it. If you decide to do this, you know, make sure you don't have a full tank of gas. You may spill some. You could always leave it on because that tank will move up out of the way, but I'm going to take it off. So let me get all my tools here together. I got to get a Phillips head. I got my Doyle screwdriver here. I really like this screwdriver. Seems to fit every screw that I've ever tried to get out. And I know that there are different Phillips head screwdrivers for different size Phillips heads, but this one seems to fit them all. A little clip on there. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it on other videos that these rope guides, sometimes they're really tight. You have to cut the knot to get the rope out. But this particular one, I could just slide it right out and just let her go in. All right, that's out of the way. Let me get the gas tank out of the way. I'm gonna need an extension here. These bolts that hold this gas tank on are what's called shoulder bolts. And I'll show you what a shoulder bolt is as soon as I get the last one out. That's a shoulder bolt. It'll only screw so far into the shroud before it stops, and that way it doesn't smash the plastic gas tank. So that's what the purpose of it is. And then on the side, over here, underneath the tank, is a bolt. It's a shoulder bolt also. A little bigger. That's also so it doesn't smash the tank. Now, that fuel line's hooked up, but I'm able to just lift it out of the way. And that way, I won't have any issues getting the other bolts on and the new bolts in. The oil tube also has a shoulder bolt, same size as the other ones that hold the tank on. So you don't have to worry about mixing them up. I like to use my battery operated ratchet because it takes no time at all. Oh, I keep putting them in the wrong place and I dropped it. These magnetic trays are really nice to have. As far as the oil tube goes, be careful. Make sure there's no debris down around the end of the tube, because when you pull it out of the shroud, there's a little tab on it, and when you pull it out, if you end up pulling it out, you'll get some garbage get down inside of the reservoir, the sump, and you know, you'll have to get it out. I mean, I don't know if it'll really destroy the engine, but it's not going to be any good for it. All right, got those out. Now let me get these out. Now, I don't know why they do this, but when Briggs assembles these engines, and I'll show you, they always seem to put the longer bolts, or longer, they're quarter 20s with a 3/8 head. They put longer ones in the front and shorter ones in the back. And I don't know, maybe their engineers think that a longer bolt at the front will hold it better or whatever. I don't know, but if you put a short one in the front, it's still gonna hold it. I've never pulled one apart. I don't even remember if I ever put a short one in the front or back, but I don't think it really makes any difference in my own opinion. But since they do it like that, I'm going to reassemble it that way. And this is what I'm talking about, these bolts. If you look, and I hope this camera can focus on it, this bolt here is about a quarter inch longer than the other one. So that came out of the front, I'm going to put it in the front. Now it's ready to come off. And as I said, just pretend this rope is the old rope. So let me reposition the camera, and we can get back into pulling the old rope out and putting a new one in. All right, let's get back into this. Oh, I gotta grab that little screwdriver. All right, now we can get back into this. Basically, it's just the same as the other starters. Oh, by the way, this here starter is off of one of the newer Briggs. There is a cover that goes on. You got to figure out how those tabs that lock that cover in come out. But basically, it's just like the Honda and the Kohler. There's 3 bolts that hold it on. Same thing. Pull the rope out. Put your screwdriver in there. Take it on. Same as the Honda and the Kohler. So I don't have one. I probably have an engine out there, but I didn't bring one out. Basically, just because it is. It's the same as those. It's pretty much the same as the other. So let me set this aside. All right. Again, same thing. I'm going to pull the rope out all the way. Drop my screwdriver in there in a spot that the rope would be lined up with the hole on the starter pulley. I got to go get a pair of needle nose, so let me go get those. My needle nose, I can pull that. As you can see, you got the screwdriver sticking on. It's not letting the rope rewind. Now, as I said earlier, I already replaced this, so I can untie this knot. But you can always, if you can't untie it, just cut it off. And you can pull it on. And as I said earlier, you can use, you can either take your spool and feed it in through the housing or measure it up. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Briggs, it always seems to cut their ropes a little bit short, like about 6 inches short. So if I measure it, I'll make it at least another foot longer. If I run it in from the outside of the shroud into the pulley and tie the knot and then rewind it, I do buy excess bulk rope. I buy like 200 yards of it or whatever. And so I always have an ample supply of rope. But this particular rope, I'm going to use number 4.5, being that this is a 7 horsepower. And I'm going to run this in. Again, this here, the starter handle. I'm going to pull this out. And I'm going to untie this knot, just to show you the knot that I did tie in it. If I can get it apart. It's a slip knot, and it's pretty tight, but it's usually pretty easy to untie. And there it is. And I got to go get my lighter. The end of these ropes, they always seem to fray, and that's what you need the lighter for. If you don't have the lighter to melt the end of it, you're going to have issues as far as trying to feed it through. So that's what I got the lighter for. Since this rope has already been in and tied, you can see I got the end of it all bent up. I'm going to try to feed it in like this, but when I cut this rope, I made this rope a lot longer. So if I lose that couple inches right there, it's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to try to heat that up and straighten it out a little bit so it's easier to feed into the pulley. And if it doesn't work that way, then I'll just cut that off. I know there's plenty there. I think I got it straight enough. So now I'm going to feed it into, first, the rope guide that's on the shroud. and then try to get it in that hole, and it went right in. Here's where the needle nose can come in pretty handy. And as I said in the earlier videos, I always try to just recreate the knot that's inside of the pulley is what the manufacturer does. I know that Honda, I think it was, I mentioned it now, that they use like a double knot. I'm just going to put a simple regular overhand knot in it. I know that's what Briggs does, and I know that in their service manual they even give you what the length of the tail should be. I think it's anywhere from an 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch. Right now I got it sticking out about a 1/4 inch. That's plenty. That's not going to come on long. And I got the extra rope, and again, I don't know if I probably mentioned it on the other videos. You want to have more than not enough rope when you put your starter rope in, because if it's too short and you pull it, you end up at the end of that pulley. You could end up wearing the tip of it out, or it may not be enough. I personally believe that that engine should fire before that rope is extended all the way. So I make sure there's plenty of rope in there. And as I said, if you got too much in, there's no problem. If that rope's hanging down on your from your rope guide on the handle, just snip it off a little bit and tie a new knot in it. But it's really best to have more than not enough, and I think that's the case in most anything. So, anyways, I got the knot in. There's the rope going through the rope guide on the starter, coming through the hole on the pulley. I'm going to pull that up. Make sure everything's stuck in there nice. Hold the rope. You don't want to let it fly in. And then slowly release it and let it get in. Now, one thing you might want to do before you do this is to actually tie a slip knot in this before it goes all the way in, because if your rope won't go through the guide, you're going to have to wait till after you get it through the guide to put your handle on. So you may want to put a slip knot on the end of it, which is what I'm going to do right now. And now I'm going to install it onto the handle. The rope onto the handle. Pull it out, and as I said in other videos, the knot I tie on the handle, I always tie a slip knot in it, because I know it won't come through. I know that it won't untie or slip, whatever. It'll stay. And when I take it apart, if I ever have to take it apart again, it's easy enough to undo that knot. So I got the slip knot. I think I showed you on those other videos what a slip knot is. Simple, easy knot to tie. So anyways, that's on. Now I can pull it in. And I'm going to have to actually extend this rope out again to get it up through the handle, so I don't have to pull on the engine to get it up to the handle. But I'm going to undo that slip knot, and as you can see, I got a little bit hanging there, which is good, because this is going to actually extend from the engine up to the rope guide on the starter handle, and that'll be there, and that should be plenty enough to pull that handle tight against that rope guide. So that's all there is to it. Pretty simple. All right. Now it's time to reinstall it. Pause the camera here, reposition the camera, and we'll reinstall it and put that thing back together. When I took that shroud off originally, I noticed that somebody else had this apart, and they didn't have this governor or this choke system hooked up properly. Now, Briggs has a pretty nice choke system on these machines. Usually they could fire on a first or second pull. And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to just give a brief description of how it works. But it's really a nice choke system. So anyways, this lever right here is what operates the choke. It's connected to the carburetor right there. I don't know if you can see that. And a spring, and that's a calibrated spring, is what holds the choke closed. And this, once the engine fires, the flywheel, the air that the flywheel generates, pushes that out of the way and opens the choke all the way. and then it's running it without the choke being closed. There is a lever on the muffler right here. Can you see that lever? I'm moving it. And what happens is that engine heats up, that lever moves, and it'll hold the choke open while the engine's hot. So, when you shut it off, you're not going to be shutting it off with a closed choke and flood the engine. This will keep it open. As it cools down, the choke starts closing and starts drawing some more fuel out of your carburetor. Great system, and they've all come out with different variations of it. The Briggs, the Kohler, the Honda came out with different variations of the same type of system, but what a great system. No primer bulb, no manual choke, all automatic and properly maintained, clean carburetor, fresh fuel, new spark plug. These things will fire in the first pull. So it's a great system, but that's the choke system on a Briggs. Now let me set this camera back down. All right, time to reassemble it. Now, get this on here. Oh, I'm going to tie that slip knot in this handle so that I can get it up there pretty easy. Shouldn't need to force it to get it back in. Drops right into place. Now you can reassemble your the bolts. As I said, I'm putting the longer ones in the front. I'm going to put the shorter ones in the back. That's the way they do it. Well, they know more about this engine than I do. Sometimes don't agree with some of the things they do, like cutting that starter rope short, but hey, whatever. These bolts should go in pretty easy. Be careful when you put it in. You don't want to cross thread them. Then you got all kinds of issues there. And having all four of them in is better than having three of the four in. Especially on these on the front ones, because I guess that's where the strain is. But still, with that much of the thread inside of the cylinder head, I don't see the benefit of it. Oh well. And I'm going to use my battery operated ratchet here to tighten these bolts, but I usually don't use this for anything smaller than 3/8. It's got a lot of torque, and oh, wrong way. It could snap them. I always start all of the bolts first before tightening any, because you might tighten one, and the others may not line up properly. There's always some give there. So I start all four of them before I tighten any of them. All right, that's on. Now, again, don't want to forget the oil tube. As I said, the shoulder bolt that holds this oil tube on is the same one that holds the tank on. This one I'm going to tighten. It's the only one that's on there. And I'm going to tighten it with a manual ratchet wrench. All right, that's tight. Well, hand tight. I'm going to tighten with my ratchet wrench. You don't want to go crazy on tightening it. I could put my gas tank back on. Let me get this lined up. The older one of these had on this particular bolt here. The older machines had a little plastic spacer that went between the tank and the engine. And it was always easy to lose that, and always a pain in the neck to get your bolts started. A little bit of a pain in the neck to get bolt started into it, but they made these where that spacer has an end on it that fits inside the hole of the tank, and that way it doesn't drop out when you pull that bolt out. And again, if it's round, and if it drops, it grows legs and runs away, and then you can't find it. So I'm only going to tighten this up with the ratchet wrench too. This one I can tighten up because I know that there's enough flexibility in that gas tank that I could get those other bolts started without any problems. And this does have some flexibility in it, so I can I'm sure I can get those started without having to worry about tightening that up first. I have taken apart so many of these Briggs engines. Whether it was a starter rope or the ignition coil had to replace, or even if I take a carburetor part on this, that vane, that air vane for the governor or for the choke, it might not be in line with that lever on the muffler, and so then you got to take it off and make sure everything lines up properly. These ones, like I said, I'm starting all of these before I tighten any of them up. Tighten them all up, that is. All right, got them all started. Again, I'm using the ratchet wrench. I'm not using the battery one on this because it's too easy to snap them. And if you would snap one, I mean, it's not like the end of the world. Two of them will hold that tank on. But I just rather use that than the battery. All right, let me get the cover back on this. I can guide that knot through the hole for the starter rope without any problem. This cover, if you should have it cracked up or something, don't worry about putting it back on. It's really for decoration. It doesn't really serve any other purpose except to make it look, I don't know, new, pretty, whatever. But it looks good, and I mean, I'll probably just get this thing running and I'll sell it. I won't make a ton of money. I'll just more or less, it was given to me, I'll more or less just sell it for what I have put in it plus my labor. I don't, I don't look to milk anybody out as much as I can. But yeah, it's a nice mower. It has one handle height adjustment, self-propelled. You can adjust the handle to different heights. It's not a bad mower. It's not the snapper, the old snapper that before Briggs bought the company. The old snappers had a rounder deck and it curled under, and they sweet mowers. They did a beautiful cut. They had a great if you bagged your grass, it really picked the clippings up nice. This isn't it. This is just your basic lawn mower. It's a nice mower. I don't know what it would have cost new or anything like that, but it's not a bad mower. All right, rope's in there nice and tight. Everything's on. I disconnected the spark plug because I'm going to demonstrate about starting it, making sure that that rope's long enough. Let me let her down. This lift table has been really nice for me in this shop here. I'm going to back it up so you can see the whole mower. That should be good. Oh, I may have mentioned it. If I did, I'm going to repeat myself. When you start practically any machine. You shouldn't just grab the rope and yank it, because what you're doing, I think I did mention it in the other videos, you're banging those dogs against that starter cup. And when I start a machine, I always just engage the engine and give it a pull. And as you can see, I'm not extending that rope all the way when I pull this, when I pull it. There's still some rope left inside of that starter pulley, which means there's still not all that full tension on that spring, and I'm not pulling the rope out all the way. And, you know, you're not going to have any issues with that like that. So that's it. That's basically all there is to replacing starter ropes. Not a big deal. Little bit of patience. The tools that I used, of course I have this, but you don't have to go out and buy a battery operated ratchet wrench to replace the starter. I think I mentioned that already. These are all the tools I used. Needle nose pliers, screwdriver to hold the pulley from recoiling, 3/8 socket, 5/16 socket, you know, the handle, the nut driver handle, the ratchet wrench, and another extension, and the Phillips head screwdriver. And that's all I needed to do to change that starter rope on that machine there. So anyways, I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to come back and finish this up with works for me, part of my works for me segment, part of my my video. So let me pause it. I'll be right back. Here's my segment of works for me project items. I got this little flashlight. I got it from a company called Coast. And what happened, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to make it short. My other Coast flashlight, this one here, actually, something went wrong with the battery battery holder inside of here. And so I ended up, and this was a nice flashlight. So I ended up, they sold them at Home Depot, and I went up, I bought another one. Wasn't the same thing. It was a little bit smaller. It was as close to this as I can get. So I got home, and I'm taking it apart, and I read the back of the box, and these things are guaranteed for a lifetime. So I called the number, and I spoke to a nice lady on the phone, and she said, just take a picture of the phone, take a picture of the flashlight, what the problem is, describe the problem, and they may either issue a new part or whatever. And so I did, and I sent it to them, and lo and behold, they said that they are going to send me a new flashlight, that they don't manufacture this particular one anymore. They're going to send me a new flashlight. And I'm like, cool. Well, a little while later, I got the flashlight. I don't have it on me, probably inside. But being that I gave them my email address, they send me emails. And I always check them out because I like having flashlights. I have a bunch of them here. But I saw this particular little one here. This is called a, let me get my glasses on here because it's really printed small. This little flashlight here is a KL35R. And I know it was less than 30 bucks when I bought it. I don't know if that was a special or what. But I figured, oh, what the heck, 30 bucks? Well, when I opened it up, I was a little disappointed to see the size of it. But then I got to using it. And this is really a sweet little flashlight. Let me take my glasses off here. I'm not going to shine this in the camera, but the light is an LED, and it has 3 different brightness, 3 different brightnesses. I don't know if that's a word, but 3 different luminance. But anyways, it has 3 of those. It also has a light on the back of it that comes in. It also has 2 different brightness. That has 2 different brightnesses, and also, if you're a hunter, and I heard that deer can't see red light, but if you hold this button in, the red comes on, and if you hit it in again, it'll flash. Nice little flashlight. And I'll tell you what's really sweet about it. It has a clip on it, and I can clip that on my hat. right next to my speaker. Turn it on. And now, I don't need to be holding a flashlight whenever I'm working on a piece of equipment. I could have that on my hat, and I could have 2 free hands. Let me turn it off. I could have 2 free hands, and I could just move my head around to just to wherever I need the light. And what else is sweet about it, it's rechargeable. It comes with this recharging cable, plugs into a USB port. Plugged in right there. Plug it in. The little light will be red until it's fully charged, and then it'll be green to show you it's fully charged, and you're ready. You're good to go. And it does last a while on a single charge. So, great little flashlight. Coast. Again, it's a. I gotta read this with my glasses. Oh, I'm missing the lens. KL35R. So, Coast is a company. You can find them on the web. Google it, and you won't be disappointed. So that's it. That's my video. If you enjoyed it, if it helped you out, that's all I'm doing these for. I don't make money off of them. I hope to reach as many people as I can, just because I like helping people out. And if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to leave a comment, please do. And if you got anybody, if you want to subscribe to it, please do. If you know anybody that's interested in small engine repair, and it's not going to be all basically just small engine repair. Like I said, I've got a few other electrical jobs over there. Well, the torpedo heater and the compressor are going to be on future videos. So if you're interested in any of this, anybody else you know interested, go ahead and subscribe to it. And that's it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.